So welcome back to another Room 1-on-1 from the Homeboys. Celtic are back, and we're back at Celtic Park this weekend as Hearts head down the M8 for their first visit to Glasgow this season. So to help us look at our Midlothian opponents, I am delighted to welcome co-host of the Hearts Review podcast, Gordon Senior, to the show. Well, Gordon, how are you, pal?
Well, I've been better, mate, you know, as I'm sure you can imagine. But, yeah, not bad. Getting there anyway, getting there.
Good, mate. Well, maybe I'll help you through with this then. So, Gordon, it's tradition on the show for new guests just to tell us a wee bit about themselves, right? So who is Gordon Senior? Why does he support Hearts?
Long-suffering Hearts fan. I mean, I think that's the way I would describe myself when people ask me that. I was brought up in Fountainbridge, you know, a stone throw away from Tynecastle. There was no other choice for me, mate. I was brought up in a Hearts family. And all I wanted to do as a kid was play for Hearts. Unfortunately, I'm not quite an athlete, so that was never going to happen. Not that stopped a few Hearts strikers over the years, but I just typical football loving laddie, really, for Edinburgh, and that's pretty much it.
Tremendous, mate. Tremendous. Right. Okay. So we're only 4 league games into the season so far. That said, well, it's game number 5 for us this weekend. It's game number 8 for Hearts. But it's still early enough to look back at the recent past and the summer and the goings-ons. So bear with me. Here we go. So last summer, Stephen Naismith, who'd been appointed interim manager the previous April, was appointed first-team manager, but first had to take the role of technical director due to not having the relevant coaching licence. In what seemed farcical at the time, as Frankie McAvoy took the manager's role for a period. Anyway, league-wise, the form wasn't great in those early days. From the opening 10 matches, only 3 wins, 2 draws, 5 defeats. The team ultimately secured the league finish on the back of the results from November to February, I think. 16 games played, only 2 defeats, 1 draw, 13 wins. The remainder of the season was very up and down, but what was noticeable about that Hearts team last season was that you're always beating the best of the rest. So winning the games against the teams around you. So at the end of the season, Hearts would, Hearts would finish in 3rd place, 1 place above the previous season 4th place, 38 games played, 20 wins, 8 draws, 10 defeats, 54 goals scored, 42 conceded, plus 12 goal difference, 68 points on board, 17 points behind Rangers, 12 points ahead of Kilmarnock, securing qualification for this season's Europa League playoff. Now, the 4th place the previous season had put Hearts into the UEFA Conference League 3rd round qualifying, drawn against fallen Norwegian giants Rosenborg. A 2-1 away defeat, but a great 3-1 home win put them through the playoff round. A narrow 2-1 defeat to Pauk at Tynecastle, despite taking a lead early in the match, was followed by a 4-0 scalping, and Europe was done. And then Naismith was appointed manager full-time. In the League Cup, due to those European exploits, no League Cup groups, so Hearts started the campaign with a home tie with Partick Thistle. A 4-0 win was followed by a quarter-final win over Kilmarnock Rugby Park. So a semi-final in November against Rangers. A 3-1 defeat ended hope for the Cup that season. The Scottish Cup had a bit of deja vu about it, as wins over the Spartans, a late Kent winner, a 4-1 win over Airdrie, a 1-0 win over Morton Capello set up Hearts for another semi-final, another game at Hampden, and another defeat to Rangers, this time 2-0. So, very much a season of up and downs. In summary, what were you thinking? Were you happy with last season? Were you frustrated with, just in general, what was your thoughts, mate?
Christ, that felt like a bit of a therapy session.
Wait till I do this season.
I don't know. It's funny when you look at it on paper and you look at the league table and you think and particularly the points total and the various away wins, because away form has been something we've struggled with for all of my life, pretty much. It actually looks like one of our kind of best ever league campaigns in a long, long time. Certainly in my lifetime, you know, over the last 30 years in particular, it's one of our best kind of league campaigns. But I really didn't enjoy watching us that much last season. I think maybe off the top of my head, I can only remember maybe 2 or 3 games where we've scored over 3 goals. A lot of the time we were having to come back from being a couple of goals down sometimes, and really kind of clawing out results. Now, that's not always a bad thing because there's obviously clearly a bit of determination in that team. Certainly there was last season anyway, and they got over the line. But I remember coming away from Aberdeen away in December there, just before we played Celtic in December last year. And I was very much convinced the manager needs to go.
That was a 2-1 defeat.
Aye. So conceded in the last minute. It was a horrible day. It was pissing down with rain, miserable. I thought I've had enough of these. You know, they're absolutely testing my patience. They're not going to achieve anything this year. They need X amount of signings, get a real manager in. And then we go to Celtic Park and win 2-0, and no one's seen that coming. A big group of me and my pals, we go all over the country watching Hearts. And when not a single one of us went to Celtic away that day, we decided to have a Christmas party instead that day. And typical Hearts going win 2-0. And then after that, we went on a run of not just at home, but away from home, kind of winning games. And I think we obviously the derby was in that period as well, the last minute winner. That just kind of acted as a catalyst. And by the way, I mean, the Celtic first half was really good. But apart from that, when you actually kind of look at that run towards the January, a lot of the games, they still weren't playing very well, but they were grinding out results. And I think that gave them a momentum and the confidence to go on and secure third place. It helps as well that I think, you know, Hibs and Aberdeen were nowhere near us. Kilmarnock had a really good season, a really tough team, but they didn't beat us last season, and we seem to have sort of the Indian sign over them. And I think that definitely helped. And obviously, I think we did get better as kind of after the year. I mean, the Celtic performance at home, for example, where we won 2-0, I thought we were really good that day. But the biggest frustration, I think, for me was definitely the 2 semi-finals. And I think that showed the kind of the weakness in that Hearts team, that the first semi-final of the League Cup one, that was still in the middle of kind of their poor run at the start of the season. I think after that one, we went and beat Motherwell, and that sort of gave us a mini kickstart before that Aberdeen game I mentioned brought us back down to earth again. And then going into the kind of the semi-final at Hampden, the second one, the Scottish Cup one, I was thinking, you know, we've got a real chance here. And they've done what they usually do. For some reason, Hearts have a habit of conceding goals in the first 5 minutes in big games. And that's exactly what they've done. We joke about it in our group that, you know, we'll literally get to the ground and they'll be like, yeah, look, goal. And that's generally what happened. And I thought Hearts huffed and puffed, but they didn't really create too much. And then they give away a kind of sloppy second goal and lose the game 2-0. And then after that, third's pretty much done. So the season just petters out. Yeah. And then you start thinking to yourself, right, how are we going to kick on next season? We've got really good points total. We're clearly better than the teams below us. So for me, I want to see the club now go on and kick on and see if we can. I'm not talking about going and winning the league or any nonsense like that, because that's just not going to happen. It's delusional. But I want us to try and close the gap on the top two, compete against them, particularly at home. You know, last season, Celtic won 4-1 quite easily at the start of the season at Tynecastle. You know, I think Rangers as well. I think we only played them. Well, we played them 1-0. We lost. It was a midweek game. Again, that was a sloppy goal to give away. And then we played them at the end of the season there, and it was a 3-3 draw. I wanted Hearts to go and be winning that game. It's a dead rubber. Rangers have the Scottish Cup final next week. I'm thinking, go and set yourself and win the game. And again, just gave away stupid goals. I know we came back to 3-1 down, but I wasn't leaving that game being absolutely delighted because we'd got a draw and come back from 3-1 down, which maybe sounds a bit silly when you think about it, really. But I just was really annoyed. I thought that was a good opportunity to go out there and kind of win the game against a Rangers team who surely would have been half-arsed. Obviously, full focus on the following weekend, and we didn't do it. So for me, that was a missed opportunity. But I thought to myself, right, how does this team now kick on? You've got a number of sort of decent players for this level. Go in and add more. And obviously, they signed a few kind of free transfers early on before we'd even finished the season. You know, we knew about Danda, we knew about Spittle. Obviously, Penrice came in. I thought, okay, that's an interesting starting point. I think these guys can come in, particularly, Spittle and Danda, when you look at their records.
Two of them come out impressive enough seasons, but Dander's impressed every fucking year he's been in Scotland, hasn't he?
Aye, and he's still young as well when you look at him. I think he's only about 25, 26. He obviously had a good pedigree at Liverpool, and then he went to Swansea, and he's came up here to sort of kickstart his career again. He's done really well up there. And he effectively kept them up, really, the last 2 seasons, Ross County. And I think he's definitely a player that will be looking to kick on in his career. And Spittle is, I think, a similar one, but he's a little bit older. He's been kind of round about it. It's obviously the biggest club he's played for, and it's the biggest club he will play for, where you look at Danda, he could probably maybe go up on maybe another level, depending on how well he does here. But I just looked at, and Penrice as well. I think Penrice, since he's come in, has looked good. And I thought to myself, well, we do need a left back. So, right, that's a good starting point. But I wanted us to be sort of more adventurous in the transfer market. Sort of go and actually spend a real bit of money so that we're not having to worry about challenging Kilmarnock, Aberdeen and Hibs for third place. I'm wanting us to be third and then kick the club on. And the biggest frustration when we finished third the first time was that I didn't think we spent enough money and really made sure that we sort of clawed away from those teams. And and I mean the collapse of the kind of the second half of the season. I mean, pundits will tell you because Hearts were in Europe, that's why we originally struggled. I mean, that's actually not true. Our collapse came in the second half of the season when Europe was well gone and finished. The problem was, it was this, Nielsen was stinking out the place with same old tactics, really. And we let it slip. And by the time kind of Naismith took over and tried to kind of do something a little bit different to sort of claw back, the damage was done, really. And so the important thing was, have we learnt from that lesson? Because if we'd got third 3 times in a row and you get that European money, I mean, you're talking about nearly £15 million when you calculate it all up. And that's a minimum. I mean, you can potentially earn more than that. And then teams start looking at your players and things like that. Go, well, they all seem to be in Europe. Maybe they're doing well. But just for me, I just don't think there's that drive. And it comes from the top to actually try and be the club that I think Hearts can potentially be. I mean, you see smaller clubs in Europe than Hearts doing well. I know finances dictate how you run a football club. And I know Scottish football isn't exactly blessed with loads of finances. But even like, some of the teams that Celtic have played over the years, teams like Bodo Glimt and things like that. I mean, they've got a 4,000-seater stadium. I mean, you're not trying to tell me that they're a more attractive club than Hearts.
And battered us. And fucking battered us, man.
I remember watching it. I'm like, how are these coming here and doing this? And, you look at clubs like Hearts, Hibs and Aberdeen that realistically, they have the foundations to be better than what they are, but there's just a loser attitude. And I think it comes from, I think it's a Scottish thing in general, unfortunately, but ultimately it has to come from the top at each club. How are you then going to motivate? And it's okay saying, well, we're going to do this and that, and we've done this and that. But when you actually scale it all back and look at it, I just think that Hearts like to do things on the cheap. They got found out for it the other year there when they mucked up third. And I think it's looking like they're going to get found out again for it, really. And that's the biggest thing that really pisses me off more than anything else.
Gordon, that was absolutely magnificent. I say to you before this, I tell everybody, I love a good rant, and that was a belter, mate. You've touched on so many things I was kind of going to speak about, but we'll come to them. I loved it, and I think I'd like to continue that conversation because I was actually going to touch about it. That game where we beat you 4-1, I had an eventful day that day, right? So I never get in the game. I was one of the few who had a ticket. I never get in the game. And ended up sitting in a boozer in Georgie Road with a big jacket that I bought out of Aldi after trying to get to the Hearts end. But I was sitting with a load of Hearts fans because you'll remember a lot of people left early. So that club that I sat in when there was only 10 is soon filled up. Do you know what I mean? And I ended up sitting with a lot of lassies and guys, and I was telling them I was a Celtic fan. And I remember sitting there kind of going, Stevie Naismith shouldn't be earning his badges at your club, right? I know Celtic and Hearts don't have much affiliation. However, Hearts are a big club. You're your third club. Should this guy be learning his job at your club? Especially, I've got so much respect for Hearts fans now because of the money you guys are walloping at your club. I mean, I think that's magnificent. You fling in what St Mirren boys have done, Motherwell and yourselves, just flinging that money into the club. He's deserved better. But I do wonder if Hearts, I agree with you, that Scottish mentality, and I would fling Celtic in there as well. I mean, for the first time, we've kind of looked like we've showed a set of boys, but you can't tell me Aberdeen and Hearts and Hibs haven't got more potential than a lot of these teams that have turned up in Scotland and gave us a hiding. Do you know what I mean? And I'm including us in the hiding. I'm not just saying about I'm talking about Oys. And I don't know if it is a Scottish thing of because we're so close to England, we think poor us. And that's including the national team. Do you know what I mean? But that's a totally different fucking kettle of haddies. Right, so we'll push on then. And like I say, we'll maybe come back to that. So this summer, a wee bit less madness at the club. You have started your 150th anniversary. And judging by the results, maybe a wee bit too early, but that's right. So let's look at the ins and outs, right? So bear with me. Outs first. Peter Haring, the Austrian midfielder who performed so well in Hearts' return to the Scottish top flight, left on a free. Andy Halliday had finished last season with Motherwell, loan, left and signed for him full time. Michael McGovern signed out as backup goalkeeper, retired, whilst young forward Mackenzie Cup was picked up by former manager Craig Levine at St Johnstone. Toby Sibic, the English centre-half, joined Wigan. Japanese international forward Kyusuke Tagawa returned to his native land after a season. The major out was Alec Cochrane, who himself returned to his native country and joined Birmingham. The fullback signed for Brighton in 2022 after a loan spell, played 125 games for the club, scoring 5 goals. Each of these fees for all players were undisclosed. Harry Stone, Lee McFarlane, Bailey Dahl, Aidan Denham and Lewis Nielsen joined Ayr United, East Fife, Stirling Albion, Ross County and St Johnstone on loan. Both Denham and Nielsen have both played first team games for the club, so I suppose you guys will be interested to see their development. Ins. Kenneth Vargas, who'd been on loan from Costa Rica side Herediano last season, signed on permanently for an undisclosed fee. The winger scored 9 goals in 42 games last season. James Prentice, who you mentioned, 25-year-old utility player, was picked up on a free from Livingston. 28-year-old former Scotland under-21 keeper Ryan Fulton was picked up for Hamilton, a free. After a great spell with Motherwell and Ross County, Hearts picked up the double free signing of Blair Spittle and Jan Danda. Striker Musa Drame, a 22-year-old Spaniard, was signed in a free from Sevilla Atletico, Sevilla's reserve side. Malaki Boateng, the 22-year-old Londoner who played on loan at Dundee last season, was signed for an undisclosed fee from Crystal Palace. And finally, Daniel Oyegoki was signed again on undisclosed terms from Brentford. Oyegoki represented England at under 16, 17, 18, 19 and under 2011. Right, Hearts also picked up another right back, 23-year-old Jared Taylor, a Costa Rican international on loan from Deportivo Saprissa for the year. They also signed up 21-year-old left back Andres Salazar on loan from Atlético Nacional of Colombia. Salazar represented his national senior team in June 2023 and a 1-0 win over Iraq. So I'm pretty sure you've seen majority, if not all of them, at the point of the window. Now, you touched on your kind of frustrations. In terms of player recruitment, did you get what you wanted? What do you think you missed out on? I appreciate you're talking about maybe take the next level, spend a fair bit of dough. Aberdeen and Hibs are spending a wee bit of money out there. Who are you missing? What's the position you think we needed this, we got this? What's the position we needed that, we didn't get that?
Well, I think the main problem when I look at the Hearts team is, at the moment, obviously, we're missing a couple of key players in midfield, and Beningame and Neuenhoff, and I just think just now there isn't much of a spine to the Hearts team, and they don't really have an identity about how he wants them to play. I think this is the biggest thing when you look at those kind of signings. Well, it's clear we needed a right back. We've signed 2. I think Taylor. His debut against, he made his first appearance in the friendly against Big Ange's Spurs, and I tell you, he didn't look out of place. then obviously faced the Rangers there, and he was man of the match. I thought he was excellent, and we thought, Christ, we've got some player here. But that's only been, I think, 2 or 3 weeks, and Hearts have managed to ruin him already. He doesn't take a player on anymore. It's like his confidence has been drained out of him. But when you actually look at the attributes, they're definitely could be a decent player there, absolutely. Salazar as well. I mean, he was kind of touted as being a similar signing to what Taylor has been. Obviously, the loans were I don't know if they're obligations to buy or if they're options to buy, but I think it's a similar deal to what Vargas was. And obviously, they got Vargas signed up in January. There, we knew he was going to be a permanent. So I would imagine if Hearts want them, they will get them going forward. And you kind of look at those and you think they're the most exciting players that I think we've probably signed in terms of potentially going to the next level. You think they're 2 internationalists from South America. Can they come in here? Can they go to the next level and make the club lots of money? And that's ultimately what the strategy is with those two. It might take them some time to bed in. I mean, I've only seen Salazar against Motherwell. I thought first half he looked like a rabbit in headlights, to be honest. But I think that was more to how we were playing. I mean, Naismith started with a back 3, which had the test. And he had 2 attacking wing-backs. I think when I've seen both of them, I don't think either looked comfortable as wing-backs. But I think if you played them just as full-backs, then actually I think we'd probably get better out of them. The problem is you look at centre-half, and obviously Kent had a fantastic season last season. He certainly looked a lot more solid. You've then got, right, who do you partner him with? I don't think Kai Rolls is good enough. I don't think Craig Halkett's anywhere near good enough. Stephen Kingsley I do like, but you have to say to yourself, where is his best position? Can he play in a back 4 as 2, or is he better as the left centre half, or is he best as a left back? I think he can play all 3. I think he's a decent enough player, but you know, when you're shipping goals, it's hard to kind of look at any of them and say, right, they're fantastic defenders, because they've not shown that yet this season. But I think if Hearts can get a decent kind of settled defence, then they can build from there. I look at midfield. I like Boateng from what I've seen so far. Hearts put out a kind of man of the match. Who's been your man of the match? Who's been your player of the month? Sorry, so far, and I think he's the overwhelming one. I think since he's come in, he's been fairly solid. He's not looked out of place, but again, we have Beningame and Neuenhoff, and you have to say to yourself, would he have actually been signed if either of those were not long-term injuries? I'm not so sure. And then I look at kind of what have we got sort of up front? Not a lot, really. You've got Shanklin and Vargas. You've got Boyce there, who is unfortunately a shadow of the player that he was. I mean, he was a solid signing at the time for Hearts. He's done really well. His goals return's really good, but he's had injuries. He's regressed. He's not a player that's blessed with pace. Obviously, you've got Shanklin up there, 30-goal striker. At the moment, he's not had the greatest start to the season, but he will come good. The goals will come. But there's obviously the speculation around his future. So you say to yourself, well, why aren't we then signing another striker? They brought in, the boy Musa from Seville there. Hasn't kicked the ball for Hearts yet. He's been nowhere near the first team. He's barely been on the bench. He signed a 3-year deal. Oyagoke, who you say as well, since he's come in, I mean, he scored an own goal in Pilsen. I'm not going to read too much into that, but you know, he's came on. You think, okay, could be a bit of a disaster. I mean, obviously still young as well. He's not really had that much kind of first team football. And then you sort of just go through them and you think to yourself, well, Spittle and Danda, I think both of them, I don't think he knows how to utilise them. I thought that you would sign one, he would play in kind of just either behind the striker or maybe, you know, on the left or the right or something. They're quite, Danda particularly, I think he's one of these players that can just wander and he's comfortable with both feet. He could quite easily just play anywhere across a kind of 3 right behind the striker. And you think to yourself, him and Spittle, surely they're just kind of, one of them will be on the bench one week, the other one will start, and then they'll go from there. But he's tried to kind of shoehorn them both in. And I just don't think they complement each other. I mean, Spittle's been asked to kind of play a more holding position in the middle of the park. And I know we've had injuries and sometimes needs must, but he does not look comfortable at all there. He really struggles to get the ball back to goal and go from there. I think he's someone, when you look at his goal return last season, I think it was 12 goals or something he got and X amount of assists, and you think to yourself, well, play him in the position that Motherwell had him playing in. And he's going to get goals, he's going to get assists for you. When you've got someone like Lawrence Shankland in there, he needs creativity, and we have him, Spittle, Danda and Barry Mackay, who all three of them are fantastic assist kings when they need to be. So much creativity in there. And you're saying to yourself, you've got to come up with a way of getting the best out of these guys. You've clearly got the ammunition, but for whatever reason, it's not clicking at the moment. I think he's trying too many things. I think he's almost trying to be too intelligent. I mean, I think he maybe forgets that this is his second season as a full-time manager. Stick to what you know, stick to what you're good at, and experiment, and here and there, but don't make wholesale changes. And I think at the moment, he doesn't know what his best 11 is. He doesn't know what way he wants to play. I mean, me personally, I think the Rangers game on the opening day of the season was a good starting point. I thought we played really well. Could have won it, could have lost it, but it was a performance that, I mean, if Rangers had scored late on and we lost 1-0, I'd be fuming, but I'd get over it quickly because I thought the performance was decent. It's the best we've played against them, certainly in all the games last season. And you think to yourself, right, Dundee away, go there, play exactly the same team, get some momentum, get an early away win against a team that we've beaten in our last 3 games there against them, and they're 3-0 down at half time. And you're going, what on earth's going on here? And he changed the team round, went to a back 3, and I just couldn't understand it. And he's stuck with a back 3 now, and kind of he's stuck with a back 3 against Pilsen. I could understand away from home in Europe, you want to kind of make it tight and get them back to Tynecastle. Fair enough. Then we go to Motherwell, continues with the exact same formation. We're 2-0 down, changes it again to a back 4, and then suddenly we start creating chances. But we gave away another silly goal, and I think that happens when you're not playing well and you're kind of down there and things just aren't going your way. But the home games kind of frustrated me a little bit. He did, in fairness to him, go back to a back 4 against Dundee United, and first half we were all right, but you can see it's a team that's lacking confidence. And I think if we maybe got that goal and maybe got that victory, even if it was just 1-0, it might be different going forward. But I think at the moment their heads are down, and the manager for me is just not getting enough out of them. And I don't really see it turning this time. Like you say, they got that surprise result last season at Celtic Park. No one seen coming. For me, that was just a perfect day because they've caught Celtic on a day that they were just so poor. I mean, even at 2-0, I thought, we're comfortable here, and that never happens at Celtic Park. And it was just bizarre. And I think it was just the perfect day to catch them. I think whoever Celtic might have been playing that day might have beat them. And it's just one of them. And then it kickstart your season and you go from there. And you would need really a result like that to happen this weekend for, I think, things to turn around. And I just don't see it happening at the moment. Like I say, we've kind of brought... when I say I wanted to see the club be more ambitious, I mean, the 2 fullbacks are fair enough, but we sold Tagawa, who I did not rate at all. I thought he was utter pish. Honestly, he was fucking shite. But we signed him on a 4-year deal from Japan, and a lot of people were expecting him to come in and be kind of that second striker, maybe a partner for Shankland or whatever. But a lot of people thought that he would score goals and really contribute. He done nothing. And you think to yourself, right, fair enough, you took a punt on a Japanese player and it's not worked. But I think it comes down to, if you paid a little bit more, you might have got someone else of a better calibre. And there was names that Hearts were being talked about. I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head what the boy's name was, but he was at Barcelona previously. I think he was South Korean or something. Hearts missed out on him. There was the Australian wingers, Silva, Sammy Silva, and he went down to Middlesbrough in the end. Hearts win for him. Wouldn't pay the little bit extra money. I think it was only an extra 40k. They nearly missed out on Shankland, actually, when they signed Shankland, because they were haggling over a small amount of money. And it's just, the frustration for me is you can see, I mean, look, I think personally, I do a lot of my scouting in Scotland because I think there's a lot of really decent players. Celtic have signed McCowan for $1 million. Hearts for me should have been all over that. Now I know if it's Celtic or Hearts, who you're going to pick, but they could have been, in from account at the start of the window. I was shiting myself that Hibs were going to get him because he would be a top player for Hibs. He really would be. I think start of the window, you go and you identify players, and I think he's one of them. The Dundee captain had an excellent season. Dundee won £1 million. I think you should, if you're Hearts, go and pay that, because if he has a couple of good seasons at you double your money at least. I remember when we had Ellis Sims on loan, and I think Hearts could have generally got him in that summer because he was. Oh yeah, he was, because my English team's Everton, so I remember at the time he was not in any Frank Lampard's plans. Took him to America, and he was the only player to not actually kick a ball. Everton at the time were desperate just to get him off the books. Hearts, I think, wanted him back on loan. Everton were quite happy to sell him. I think if Hearts had offered something they would have to break their transfer record. But I'm talking about if you go in there and say you spent £1.5 million or something on him, he gets you European football 100%. He's maybe here for a year, and then you're selling him for £3-4 million anyway, because an English club, that's what Coventry done.
Well, I'll tell you that. Would I be right in saying the big man made his debut against us?
He did, yeah.
Right.
He would have done.
And I remember watching that game that night, and I was like, and he caused fucking chaos, man. And I was like, what a player that big boy was. Yeah. And because of that, I watched him. And you're talking about, I would have signed him that summer for Celtic. Yeah. On the back of their performances against Hearts. And this is the weirdo in me. I was really wanting Hearts to go and get him for the next year. Because it brings up everybody. I thought that, and you look where he's went and what he's went for and all that. You know better than me if you like Everton as well. But I sometimes in Scotland we need a set of boys. I do wonder if you guys have maybe got, because of all the financial shit that's been on in the past. I don't know if that's kind of always going to hang around your neck. Do you know what I mean? And there's no going to be that. Let's push it out. Let's do that.
I think it will with the current board at the moment. I mean, in my opinion, they should have been chased out after we went down in 2020, and that was their incompetence really that sent Hearts down. I mean, we can talk about the season was ended early and all this. I don't buy that. I think that team were going down anyway, and it was an absolute disgrace what happened there. And again, that was down to Budge and the board. The old Pals Act with Levine keeping them in charge too long. It was absolute embarrassment. Fair enough, they turned it around, but the same thing happened as well. She kept Nielsen in charge too long, and they threw away third place. The same thing could happen again now with Naismith. They're talking about they've got no plans to sack him, but we've got Celtic away, we've got St Mirren away, and then we've got Ross County at home. How many points are you taking out of that at the moment? St Mirren are a tough team, especially away from home. You could go there and win, fine, but you're not taking any more than kind of 6 points, and that's if you're lucky at the moment. The way we're playing at the moment, I think we'd be lucky to get one. And then you've got another international break coming up, and you think to yourself, you could potentially be 18 points behind Aberdeen. I think it's 11 at the moment. I know there's plenty of games left, but it's you're playing catch up constantly, and you think to yourself, well, if it was me, if I was on the board, I personally would have made the change at the international break there after Dundee United. I'm not saying they would have had a new manager in charge of the Celtic game, but I think go and be ambitious and try and get someone in. And I don't know who that is. People say, well, who'd you get in? Well, that's not my job. That ultimately is the people who make the decisions and have the money at the top end. But I'd like someone to go and be ambitious and bring someone in and say, look, we're the third biggest club in the country here. Go and see if you can take us to the next level. We've got some decent young players. We've got a decent squad. Listen, there's some money, and we're not talking about millions. It's going to be tough. I'm not talking about even splitting the old firm. I'm not any nonsense like that. I just want you to be third, strong in third, narrow the gap, do well in Europe, challenge for trophies, and then see where it takes us and go from there. Because I think the biggest thing for Hearts to grow as a club ultimately is continuing to qualify for Europe and doing well in Europe. And that squad at the moment, I just don't think it's got enough to properly compete in Europe and do well. Maybe with a different manager, it might. Someone who's shrewd, who's maybe played in Europe, managed in Europe before, who has that experience, can come in and maybe set his teams up to do a lot better in Europe, make us kind of harder to beat, because defensively at the moment we're just giving away cheap goals. And if you can't, with the greatest respect to Motherwell, Falkirk, and Dundee United and Dundee, if you're leaking goals against these teams, I mean, how on earth do you expect to keep clean sheets? Against Copenhagen's and Bruges and all these teams. And when you look at the actual teams that are drawn in Europe, realistically, there's nothing to fear there, I don't think. I mean, there's good sides, absolutely, but I think none of them are bigger than Celtic or Rangers, or potentially better than Celtic or Rangers. You'd fancy, especially Celtic, to beat every single team that we're up against, and you would fancy Rangers to do exactly the same. So I think Hearts shouldn't fear it. I mean, Copenhagen, and Kilmarnock played two of them. Played Kilmarnock and Kilmarnock played Copenhagen and Bruges. They got a draw with them at Rugby Park, both teams. And you think to yourself, I know we're going away from home, and it'll be a different game entirely, but there's nothing to fear there, I think. And even the games at home, obviously we're playing the Cypriot team. We've got the Germans as well. I mean, I didn't actually know anything about them, but seemingly they were newly promoted and then finished 8th in the Bundesliga.
A good team, man.
They will be. But again, Hearts are at home. There's nothing to fear there. You never know how a game can go. As I said, beat Celtic last season 2-0. You're going to have a similar performance to that day against this side. So you never know going into these games. And then if you can do that, you can kick yourself on and you'll be in Europe after that. The biggest frustration for me was that I thought twice now we really should have been in the Europa League, because both playoff games I thought were definitely winnable. The Zurich game, I thought we were negative in the first leg. Almost Robbie Nielsen. That was my biggest gripe with him. I just thought the guy was a loser, to be honest. I think he portrayed a loser kind of mentality. Talked a good game, but ultimately he just would always do the same thing, really. And he was on the parquet, and I was in Switzerland, and he's buzzing with himself because we got a 2-1 defeat, and he's like, I'm getting back to Tynecastle and then in fairness, we played really well in the first half and went down to 10 men start the second half, and that's the tie pretty much gone. You go out on aggregate. That game there, fair enough, we were seconds away from getting a really good result away at Pilsen, 0-0. You'd be delighted with that. 1-0 wasn't a disaster, but I want Hearts to come out flying at the start of that game and absolutely pepper them. And they just didn't do that. They were quite content to stick in, and that's clearly what Pilsen's game plan was as well. They had no intentions of properly having a pop at Hearts and leaving themselves open, because why would they? I know we missed Shanklin and stuff, but I don't think Shanklin would have been any different to what Boyce was. I think the way we were set up, you're not going to get the best out of a Shanklin and Boyce in these types of games against sort of shrewd European defenders who know how to marshal themselves. And that's all they needed to do, was just stick in and kind of almost weather a storm. But there wasn't really much of a storm anyway from Hearts. And then they got their goal towards the end, and then the tie's done. And you think to yourself, you're sat there just with regret. If Hearts were to lose that game, I don't know, sort of 2-1 or 3-1 or something. It's like the Pout game the year before. We'll not talk about the away leg, because I think they almost went into that knowing that they were going to get humped anyway, which again goes back to a bit of a loser mentality with them. But they played really well in that game at Tynecastle, went 1-0 up, then gave a stupid goal away seconds later, lost the game 2-1, but Hearts could easily have won that game. I mean, they got a goal ruled out for a marginal offside to go 2-1 up, but we played really well. And look, I was disappointed we lost the game 2-1, frustrated, but we played well, and that's all you can kind of say, really. But
you come back, you say you've lost the game in Pilsen, and then I don't know how the fuck you managed to lose that one at home. We'll come in a second, but then you even go back to the Pout game. See, if you're beating these teams or you're getting draws, and that, it is something to build on. Kilmarnock, you spoke about Kilmarnock. Kilmarnock will be disappointed to Butte, but Kilmarnock will look at their home games and go, we can build on that. Yeah. Whereas you guys have managed to pull defeats, and as you say, it's always pure shitty goals. It's never ever because, well, don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure in the Pout game away, this boy fucking pinged it for a million years. But I watch your games and I want you to win. But I don't know. See, to be honest, to get back to your squad, I mean, I appreciate the Beningame and the big boy Nierenhoff are injured, right? And two big players, especially Beningame, has been a smashing player. But I do look at the squad and think it's awfully light, considering what you're going to be doing this year. I'll no stress over it. I kind of look. I've been reading a few of your things. You're talking about guys like Liam Boyce, right? I love Liam Boyce. I think Liam Boyce is such a good player. Does he score barrel loads of goals? But he's hard up play the way he fucking brings people into the game. I really liked it. I'm seeing people saying his time's done. Right? Shankland obviously is a class act, but you've got to feed Shankland. I mean. And see for the game, so I've watched the highlights, at least the highlights of every one of your games for speaking to you. Plus, I've watched a few, like I watched these against the Huns. Like you said, I thought the Huns were rotten. I tell everybody who listens to me, Hearts are going to have a great season. Hearts look great. So I jinx you. But seeing every game, I mean, I could get through them all, but seeing every game, know what stresses stands out? The lack of creating chances. I mean, I went and looked at the stats. See shots on goal. You haven't hit more than 3 in any game this season. Not one. And that's all the European games. And for you to have a guy like Shankland up front, you've just signed Danda, you've signed Spittle, you've got Alan Forrest, you've got fucking Barry Mackay. It's wild that you guys aren't creating bags of chances. And it must come down to your coach.
It's got to. I think it's the way that he sets them up. As I say, I think it's different when you play maybe against, better teams like Celtic and Rangers, for example, and you can understand away from home, maybe playing a back three and being a wee bit more secure. I get that. But for me, I don't think Hearts should be playing back threes against Motherwell and Dundee away from home. That just shouldn't be happening. You should be going there with your best players in the park, winning the game. If you get beat in these games, fine, you get beat. But there's ways of getting beat. And I always mind when, it was that 4-3 game at Tynecastle with Celtic, and it was the first game with VAR. And look, Hearts lost the game 4-3, right? But I stayed and applauded Hearts off the park because I thought they were, attacking-wise, they were really good. They had to go to try to win the game. Defensively, they just weren't good enough and they gave away some terrible goals. But look, you lose 4-3 against the champions, fine. It is what it is. You can come away and go, we're unlucky there, what a game away. But, when you just roll over and you lose sort of 3-0 or 4-1 or whatever, that's what sort of gets my gripe. And it's given away stupid goals.
The one that must kill you this season, sorry to interrupt you, is that Dundee United one, right? I mean, the Dundee away, the goals you gave away in that game were fucking bonkers, man. Absolutely bonkers. The opening goal, howler for the second, then obviously the penalty for the third. I mean, that's first off, it's killed you, and then fucking VAR just save you if you're going 4-0 down. I mean, that must fucking. But that Dundee United game, that game was just plodding out to be 0-0, and then they've scored a fluke chance. Do you know what I mean? And you're beat.
I think Dundee United, they clearly came with a similar plan to what Pilsen would. They sat in, they didn't really create much themselves. They were just waiting for their opportunity, and fair enough, they took it. Hearts were getting a little bit desperate. Obviously, the game opens up and they give away a stupid goal. But I think Dundee United and Jim Goodwin would have took a 0-0 right before the game. So you're right in what you say. It's a bit of a sucker punch. But I think it's when you're going through a run like this, you see these results coming, and I've seen that coming a mile away. Absolutely knew it was going to happen. See, when Dundee United hadn't beaten since 2016, we hadn't lost at Tynecastle in I think 13 games or something, in the league, obviously. And I don't know. I just knew what was coming. And even as the game goes on, I thought Hearts will never score in here, and they just didn't look like scoring. The Dundee United goalkeepers had done a fairly simple afternoon. Really, he's not had to be. We had a couple of sort of huffed and puffed in the first half. It looked more like it, but it just petered out when we didn't get that first goal. And that was a bit like Hearts last season, I thought. The signs were there, really. If they didn't, we barely ever scored in the first half. I'd love to actually see what the official stat was, in terms of first half goals. But it must have been in single figures at home. Had to have been, because every single time you were sat there at half time going, this is fucking shite. And then they would come and start the second half, and they would get a couple of goals, and you think, all right, well, there we go, happy days. And you almost think to yourself, right, well, how do you eradicate that? So you go and buy some creative players. so you're maybe playing a more expansive way of football.
Yeah.
But that's not happening the way they're setting the team up, with the way he's setting the team up. You mentioned the Dundee game there. They went into that game just totally changing it from the Rangers game. And you think to yourself, why? Why would you do that? I mean, fair enough if, like, you go in with that exact formation and you give away stupid goals, I get that. And you do that having no changes from the Rangers game, because then you firmly just blame the players for that. You go, well, how could you perform that at home well one week and then come away from home and do that? And the manager in that situation would be blameless for me, because it's these players that just individual errors. It happens. Look, we'll dust ourselves down. We've got a cup game the next game week against Falkirk. We'll go for there. But when you fucking leak goals like that, naturally, and you change the formation, and naturally players are going to be like, what's going on here? The Falkirk game again, I mean, Hertz could have been 3-0 up in the first half, to be honest. They missed a lot of chances. Obviously, Shanklin was on the bench. It made changes here and there and stuff. It started Halkett at centre half and obviously switched the goalkeepers and things like that. And there was a few changes, but it was still a decent enough team to go in and win it. Falkirk, obviously, it's cup football, it can happen. They're on a high run. They've not been beaten a long time. Confidence, once they get that first goal, that boosts them. The way we played the following week, the Hades go doing, it happens. It is what it is. You write it off and you go for there. The biggest concern for me was the Motherwell one, and the fact that, because I expected us to go there and beat them, and I thought, right, this is a day that kickstart. Listen, it's been a bit an up and down start. We're unlucky in pills in there. Go Motherwell, get your first 3 points on the board and kickstart the season. The fact they lost 3-1 to Motherwell was the biggest concern for me. And that right away is the work.
Defending set pieces look like a big problem.
Oh, shocking. Well, ironically, you mentioned set pieces because last season I don't think we conceded a goal from a set piece. And they prided themselves on that, because the season prior to that, we were missing a big commanding centre half like Kent. Brought him in there. Suddenly we're more organised and we're doing really well. And then literally that Motherwell game there, we could have been 3-4-0 down at half time just from balls into the box. And you got young, Lennon Miller there, who, by the way, looks, I think, a really good player. So dangerous with his balls into the box. And we're just standing like statues. I mean, Craig Gordon, I think he made a save with his face. I mean, it was fortunate, but Craig Gordon pulls those types of saves off, and it was, his incredible goalkeeper. And then and then there was another one as well with the boy, literally, how he's missed. He's about 3 yards out. He just doesn't get a decent enough connection on the header, and it goes wide. And you think, right, go and wake up here. And then they concede the first goal, basically doing that again. And you think to yourself, if you're not going to learn from your mistakes, how do you expect to suddenly get better? And you can talk about formations until the cows come home, but what are they doing in training to, right? I mean, if players aren't learning from the mistakes, you fucking get rid of them. That's simple as that. They're just clearly no very good defenders. And I think the majority of them, I think Kent, I'm concerned that, but I think he's been carrying a niggle. I'll put it down to that. I mean, I'm sure he will improve because he had a solid season last season. But, guys like, Halkett and things like that, and Kingsley and stuff like that, I mean, they've been here for a long time now. And I just think defensively, we've not been good for a long time. And we sold Alex Cochrane in the summer there. A lot of people were upset, Rowan and Green. I wasn't, because I didn't think he was a very good defender. I genuinely don't. I think Hearts were actually, I think it was a good bit of money Hearts got for him. But I remember watching games against, I mean, you remember this yourself, I think, was the day, I think Celtic won the league at Tynecastle and he gave away the penalty and got sent off. He came back and done the exact same thing in a game against Hibs. And and it seemed to be a weak kind of point. And I think he'd done the exact same thing against Celtic last season in that 4-1 game also. It's the same thing. Players just used to getting behind him, and he'd leave a lazy leg out and they would give away a penalty. And I just thought things like that, it just really kind of frustrated me. Where I like the boy Penrice so far at left back. Obviously, they've signed Salazar, so it'll be interesting to see which one actually becomes the left back. But you've got to find a settled defence and go from there.
I have been interested because usually I fly through these and I looked at your previous games and I do look at the formation, and the fact that your formation's kind of odd on the show, but I put it down to transfer mark rather than maybe they're kind of misunderstanding. But sure enough, I thought because these two new boys are playing, they have been playing as wing backs, but I think that's mega interesting what you're saying, that neither one look comfortable, because I think it's a really easy thing. See if somebody's fast, he can play up the line.
Yeah.
Whereas he might not be fucking comfortable with the game behind him. You know what I mean? He might enjoy it like that. So because as you say, the boy, what was his name? Taylor, was it?
Yeah.
Against Rangers, do you remember the whole of Scotland were going, oh, where did they get this boy for? And he was dynamite. He was coming in. He was going wide. He was looking fantastic. And then, as you say, that Dundee game, did they score an OG or something? But it was brilliant. You know what I mean? It was terrible. But
no, he was. He was.
It's kind of wild. I mean, considering Naismith knew us in his second season or second and a bit, you should really, by this point, know how you're fucking playing, shouldn't you? You should know. I mean, if he wants to play a tight defensive fucking hit the counter, then fucking Danda, you shouldn't be signing Danda.
Exactly. I agree with you completely. I just think there's been no kind of strategy there, and it's an interesting one because obviously Joe Savage has stepped down. And
excellent. I was wanting to touch on this. Brilliant.
Well, you look at that and you think, well, why has he stepped down? I mean, I understand if he was going to another club down south, but I generally think the guy, and he's spoken about this many a times, I've heard him speak, that he's an ambitious guy, and he probably himself, and he's spoken about how he wants to win. He got ridiculed for saying he wants Hearts to win the league and all this sort of thing. He aims to win the league at the start of the season. I think he's a guy that genuinely believed that actually he could take the club and do something special. But the board have not backed him, and they wouldn't give him the money for the targets that he wanted to bring. So he's obviously got his scouts there, he's got his structure that he's put in place, and you probably find, and I mentioned Tagawa earlier on, he was probably about 7th or 8th on a list of players in that Japanese market that Savage had probably identified. And the fact is that when and I get that, we're not going to go out and spend millions and millions of pounds, but if you want to be ambitious, you've got to. And I'm not talking, I remember when Celtic, I mean, years ago, when they had, before Van Dijk and Wanyama came along, a lot of the Celtic fans, I think, were quite critical about their kind of transfer strategy and things like that in the market. They weren't really kind of selling any players. They were sort of buying players over 30 and things like that. And there was no kind of, how do you take the club to the next level? And you've got to start small by investing in players like Celtic did, Van Dijk, Wanyama. Now, I'm not saying for a minute Hearts are going to go and sign a Virgil van Dijk or Wanyama, but look at that on a smaller scale. Go and spend money on a Luke McGowan, on an Ellis Sims, and then reap what. Not all of them are going to work out, but at least you kind of have a fair idea that if this guy comes in here and he has a really good season, 2 seasons, you're going to double, triple your money quite easily. And that there is a platform to build on. We're patting ourselves on the back because we've got £1 million for Alex Cochrane. So what? They spent money on him anyway, but I just think that's why Savage, for me, I mean, obviously I'm speculating, but I think when you look at it quite clearly, he's probably thought to himself, what more can I achieve here with what they're giving me? And I might as well just leave on a high. I've secured another 3rd place because he came in when the club were in the Championship and on his arse. And he's took them to what should have been 3 European campaigns in a row. Obviously, it was, I'm talking about group stages. I mean, obviously, it was 3 European campaigns in a row, technically. And that's something the club hadn't kind of done before. But you think to yourself, when they got the group stage money, first time, I wanted them to be ambitious. I didn't think there was a lot wrong with the team. I wanted them to sign a Sims, maybe sign on our centre half. I think we needed a right back at the time, and then go from there. And obviously they were a bit complacent, and Aberdeen managed to not pass them. And then that should never have happened because Aberdeen were not a better team than Hearts that season. We beat them 5-0. We were comfortably better than they were, but again, just complacency stepped in. I think we were X amount of points ahead in February, March time or something. Went on a run of something like 7 straight defeats. They've obviously got the new manager, Bouncer Robson, and momentums are, it's a key thing in football. It can work both ways, and I think, you reset in the summer, you bring in Naismith. I mean, I like Naisy, right? I do, and I wanted him to do well. I liked him as a player. I wanted him to do really well. When they gave him the job, I thought, right, fair enough, let's see what happens. But I actually wanted them to go and get the Marty Centeferes, the boy that's at QPR just now. It was him or Naismith was going to get the job, and the talk is that there was a rift in the boardroom, that Savage was wanting the Marty in, where the kind of quiet voice in the boardroom of Dr. of Anne Budge decided that they wanted to go down the Naismith route, and she overruled them. And look, she might be sitting there at the end of last season there quite smug with a decision that they had secured third and that was job done. But I think to myself, yeah, great. Now back the guy then, if he's the one that you want to go in. But it just, you're just going round in circles now. And I think, she'll probably give him longer than he really should get. But I wouldn't be surprised if we're sitting here in October and we're going into the next international break and we're 9th or 10th in the league, and they do decide that, right, we actually do need to make a change. And this board, they don't do anything quickly. They took long enough to actually announce Naismith as manager. But remember when the season we did go down, it took them 7 weeks to appoint Stendhal. And that right away, you lost time, and they had Austin McPhee in for 8-9 games as temporary manager, and you just think, what an absolute mess. And I feel that they've no kind of learned the lessons from back then, and I wouldn't be surprised if something similar happened again. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he goes and proves me wrong and they turn things around and they piss third again. It would be fantastic. But I just, at the moment, I just look at that team there. I just think there's not enough for me to suggest that suddenly they're going to turn it around. They're just not, as you mentioned, they've hardly had any shots at goal. They hardly create much. They're leaking goals. You need a manager to come in there and just take a look at and go, right, this is my squad of players. Who am I going to bring in? Because even the young guys as well. You've got Macaulay Tate there, that he came in towards the end of last season, and I thought he'd done really well in the middle of the park. He's back in the B team now, and then you've got guys like Cammy Devlin, and Cammy Devlin for me is never a footballer. He runs a boot and he gives you half an opportunity in that, but he's not a very good footballer. And they seem to have this. Naismith has this thing where he wants to play him higher up the park for some reason. The guy can't shoot or pass. He's got so much energy and he loves a tackle, but he's never a footballer. And you think yourself, well, why is he playing there?
Trying to put pressure on the players in front of the defence, isn't it?
Aye, and it doesn't work. And so you say to yourself, right, listen, they've had their opportunities. This clearly hasn't worked for a while now. I personally would bring someone else in, and an experienced man, because the Hearts job for me is an attractive one. Even if I honestly don't know who you would go in and who would want to take it, but you never know. There might be a name out there that maybe people wouldn't expect in a million years would come to Hearts, and they might just fancy it. They might be out of work. They might say to themselves, right, I'll take this job maybe until the end of the season and see how I get on. And then they might just like it and they want to stick around from there another year. I don't know.
It's a no bad place to fucking spend your time all day, Edinburgh, is it? Can I take you back to the Joe Savage thing, right? So I'm glad you followed up his name, because I did have a look on the Terrace forum, and the consensus when he was leaving, or the rumours he was leaving, then the confirmation was, in general, disappointment. Right, everybody. And I'll be honest, hands up, I only remember the name when he was appointed and then when he left. Do you know what I mean? So, but everything I'm reading, so you replaced him with this guy, Graham Jones. Now, is Graham Jones starting already? Because the first thing I read, he wasn't starting to November. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe he's with Scotland for the next international break. So that'll take us into mid-October, wouldn't it? So, yeah, I would assume that November must be about right, yeah.
Which I presume you've done a wee bit of digging, because he's with the SFA, the news, right? You say he's got a sports science and medicine background. James McFadden on Open Goal was talking him up very, very highly, but not generally in a football kind of way. He gives good hugs. Do you know what I mean? So, what's your investigations? What's your thoughts? Because he's a Jambo as well, isn't he?
Oh, well, so they say, but again, I didn't care about that. You know what I mean? You can get the biggest hibby in the world if you want in the club, and as long as they actually deliver success on the park, who cares, eh? I think for me, you can look at maybe some of his, like you say, some of his previous kind of roles in the SFA as a performance director. And that's all very well and fine. And obviously, you do need to have these kind of football people in and close to the board, because I generally don't think any of them know anything about football anyway. I mean, McKinley was had a golfing background. You've got Anne Budge there, who still doesn't know anything about football despite being the chairwoman for 10 years. And then you say to yourself, well, who else is on the board? And it's just generally, there's not a lot of football people there. And my biggest concern about him is that there's not anything recruitment-wise. That he's not got any experience when it comes to recruitment. And I think that as a sporting director or director of football or whatever you want to christen the name as these days, that ultimately is their remit. It's overlooking and working with the manager, i.e. hiring and firing the manager, I think should be the kind of sporting director's job. Because I know the board made the final decision, and McKinley likes to kind of pump up his chest and say that he's the decision maker when it comes to managers and all that sort of thing. But I just think that as a sporting director, really their remit is the football department. And whether the football department is doing well or not, I think they have to take responsibility for that. I mean, for example, if it didn't turn round under Savage, he'd be in his arse or not. Yeah. It was the same when Levine was director of football. Obviously, he stepped down from that role, and he said that it was a dual role. But again, he had to go because it had become a failure ultimately, his time in charge there. And my biggest concern is, and I've spoke to you at length already about how my concerns over the recruitment anyway. Mm-hmm. It almost highlights that even further, that is this the guy to come in now, and how are they going to take the club on? I mean, what? I mean, they need to be more transparent, I think, about exactly what his role is. Yeah. They've said sporting director, so right away you think to yourself, well, it must be the exact same as Joe Savage. But then you read in articles that actually it's not going to be the same as Savage. It's not a like for like replacement. So that for me does concern me, and you do have to say to yourself, well, what is his actual role going to be? Is he going to come in? Is he going to be responsible for hiring and firing managers? Is it going to be recruitment? I know you've got to overlook different departments, whether it's the kind of youngsters coming through, the medical departments, the women's team, etc. Fine, but they don't take as much focus as what the first team should, because if the first team's doing well, the whole of the other club will do well. And that's one thing that's bothered me about Hearts in general, is I think they don't have their priorities right. They're more interested in making money from hotels and restaurants than they are from investing in players and having a decent team on the park. And that for me will always be something I'll fire at the board until they prove me wrong. And well, they've no, unfortunately.
It's ironic you say that, because I was listening to that interview with, what's his name, the fella for Hibs, the American fella yesterday. Yeah. Listen to that interview, and he seemed to take a hell of a lot of blame for all the football stuff going wrong. But see, when he started talking about the entertainment, his eyes lit up, and I was like, fuck me, mate, fucking look after the football team, all that crap, knocking that in. Right, but anyway, right, before we jump on, I appreciate I've got you for a wee bit longer than we spoke about, but before we look at the game this weekend, we'll look at the European, the draw, and you can tell me your thoughts on that as quick as we can. So in the Conference League draw, as you said, Hearts were drawn away to Dynamo Minsk, champions of Belarus. Then you've got two home ties with Omonia of Cyprus and Heidenheim of the Bundesliga. Away ties with both teams who ended Kilmarnock's European attempt, Cercle Bruges of Belgium and Copenhagen, the Danish Giants who qualified for the Champions League group last season at Man United and Galatasaray expense. And finally, a home tie with Moldovan champions FC Petrokub Hincesta in the middle of December. So, I don't know. I mean, there's some tough ties there, but there's some good ties. I mean, your home draws look all right, to be honest. I mean, Heidenheim's sore because they're a good team. I've watched enough of that. I like the Bundesliga, so I know Heidenheim. But Heidenheim are on the bounce of getting promoted. Heidenheim could have a stinker this season, even albeit they're sitting top of the league. Yeah. But, I mean, that home tie with the Moldovans, I mean, Dynamo Minsk, I don't know, man. I think it really depends on how you get going, and I know you're kind of pessimistic now. First of all, what's your thoughts on the draw? What do you think? And are you getting to any of the ties?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to the Bruges game, booked up for that. I'm actually in New York with the missus during Copenhagen, which I'm gutted because I've always wanted to go to the park in. I've always loved it as a stadium, and I was buzzing when Hertz got the draw, and then typical, it's the week I'm already away. So that's disappointing because when we had our last European campaign, I went to all the group games there, and we got some excellent trips. We're in Switzerland in the qualifier, and then we obviously went to Riga, which was fantastic. It was a really great trip. And then we had obviously Florence, and then we had Istanbul. That kind of they were all sort of summer trips. These are kind of winter trips now, so we'll sort of get the other side of the coin now. It's disappointing about the Minsk one because Minsk would have been a really great away day actually, but we're having to play them in Azerbaijan, which is fucking ridiculous, really, when you think about it. Having to go all the way. I get that obviously they're not, because of the war in Ukraine and the Belarusian part in it and stuff. They can't play in Belarus, and that's fine. But why the fuck are we going to Azerbaijan? I mean,
you don't play.
What's that all about? It's closer to blinking China than it is blinking Central Europe.
Fucking Germany.
Oh, I know. Is that what? I mean, they played qualifiers in Poland or something. I'm sure they were playing in Poland or Hungary or something. I mean, that's fine. Go and play them there. But what? So no idea what that's all about. So that is going to be a bit of a ball ache for it's behind closed doors anyway, so we can't go. But I think we go there and then we come back and we play Aberdeen away, which could potentially be a huge game in our season, really. So that's a bit frustrating. I like the look of the kind of the draw from a on paper point of view. And I mean, if Hearts were playing well at the moment and they were kind of solid enough, I'd think to myself, I'd fancy us to get through the knockouts. But when you look at it right now, I just think that they'll be lucky to get kind of maybe one win in there at the moment, the way they're playing. But look, who knows? They might just up their game in Europe. Things might have changed by then. Might have a new manager. They might just have picked up a few results. You just don't know. Football can change very quickly. And but yeah, I don't think there's anything to fear there. I mean, you mentioned Copenhagen. Obviously, I watched them. I remember last season, I think they beat Man United, didn't they? And they played quite well against Manchester City. But it depends how arse they are about the Conference League. I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
They can't be the same team that was kind of playing against Man City and Man United than they are now. And I think, the Houghton Park, by all accounts, I think Kilmarnock, I think it was 75th minute or something, until they actually scored against Kilmarnock, and they obviously got a dubious penalty, I think, right at the end. And then obviously Kelly got a draw with them at Rugby Park. So I think, I don't think there's much to fear there. You never know. I mean, Hearts could be solid and maybe get away with a draw. Well, not this current Hearts team, but, maybe by the time that one rolls round in December, who knows? Momentum might be with them. Same with Bruges as well. I never seen the game Kilmarnock playing against them away from home, but I seen the game at Rugby Park, and I thought Kelly looked not comfortable, but I think they gave a really good account of themselves. They didn't look as if they were miles better than what Kilmarnock were, and I think they only beat Kilmarnock 1-0 in Bruges, and it was thanks to an absolute stinker at the back from the Kilmarnock centre halves, I think. So. Well, you never know. Go there. Things might have changed by then. And the good thing is, it's not until, I think, the start of October that we actually play our first Conference League game. So there's a bit of time to maybe build up a wee bit of momentum and look forward to them and do our research on these teams and see how we get on. But yeah, I think it could have definitely been a lot worse when you maybe look at some of the teams that were in the competition. Chelsea were in Pot A and Real Betis and things like that. So I think Hearts should be fairly content with what they've got, and like I say, have some ambition and have a go. And I think if they go out with a whimper again, that for me would probably be the biggest disappointment. And quite frankly, if that's the sort of performances you're putting in Europe, when you've got opportunities like that, you did deserve to be there anyway.
Yeah. Well, I wish you all the best in every game anyway, but right, let's come on to the weekend, right? We're on the home straight here, so I'm going to try something here now, so hold your water. Right, so last season, we played each other 4 times. So we had a game. The first game was the 4-1 defeat of Hearts by Celtic in October. So Matt O'Reilly, Maida, Diogo, Shankman scoring a penalty, and Awata scoring a goal at the end. And then a 4-1. I think it's fair for me to say I'm doing that day because we also missed a penalty. So, oh shit, I've got you in 2 seconds. I'll get you off mute. Okay. Right, you're still on mute for some reason. Anyway, sorry. So, like I say, that game, I had a wee eventful, as I said to you earlier on, that game. So, and then the second game was a game we'll spoke about a couple of times, the 2-0 game at Parkhead. So, Shankman scoring that header, and then Kingsley with this absolute belter, a free kick. As you say, I can't remember Hearts being troubled by Celtic that day, which was the biggest surprise, apart from even going 2-0 down. Next up was a 2-0 game at Tynecastle. Grant scoring the penalty, and then Shankman another one. That day, I think
it was offside, that one there.
A couple of decisions went against Celtic that day. I'm not too happy about. And then obviously this game, as you said, the third place is confirmed. Celtic are rolling on to be champions. A 3-0 win on the day with Celtic scoring through Kyogo, scoring 2, and then Matt O'Reilly penalty at the end.
I actually didn't think Hearts played that badly in that 3-0 game. I just think we're quite clinical. The biggest one for me was the 4-1 at the start of the year. The first game, I just think gave away a stupid goal inside 3 minutes or something. And even Celtic, the second goal there, the Maeda one where he just taps over the line.
Yeah.
It was shocking defending, it really was. And if you give Celtic 1 or 2 goal lead, you think to yourself, you really are in trouble.
It was the fact they were so early, wasn't it? It just killed everything. And I don't think he's were in a good place anyway, because I say, I was sitting in the Heart Boozer that day, and the people just kept strolling in, and there wasn't a lot of fucking happy people in that Boozer, do you know what I mean?
No, I was away as soon as the third went in, because obviously Celtic did get they got a goal ruled out, didn't they, at the start of the second half, and then I think they got a penalty about 30 seconds later. And then, because I went like 2-0 down, utter shite, start the second half, well, get a goal back, and then who knows. Then they gave away a fucking... no, did they? Aye. I'm just trying to reminisce. Did they give away a penalty? No, that's what it was. Celtic scored, I think. It was offside. You thought, fucking wake up within 30 seconds. And then, generally, you thought that's your wake-up call. Then they gave away the penalty about 2 minutes later after that. And then they scored it. I was like, right, I'm out of here. Goodbye. Is what it is. Game's over at that point. But yeah, certainly the Celtic, the one at Celtic Park, didn't see it coming. As I said, none of the boys went. And that's exactly why we won the game, I think. None of us seen it coming, but a great result, a really good performance. As I said, I think it was just the perfect time to catch Celtic that day. And then the one at Tynecastle, I actually fancied Hearts before it. So I'd watched Celtic the week before against Motherwell, and Celtic were poor, they really were. And they won the game 3-1, but I think it was 3 late goals.
Two late goals. We scored. Well, we 1-0 down at half time, and then we scored. And then we basically scored the third in the 96th minute or something.
It was late. It was kind of a late funny, because it looked for a long time that Motherwell were going to beat them. And I thought if they perform like that at Tynecastle, and if Hearts are on it, they've got a really good chance of winning the game. And the irony is, Celtic actually kind of. I thought it was a weird game, because one of my niece's fiancés is a right Celtic man, and I remember talking to him about this, and I was saying it was a weird game because I thought Hearts actually started well, but then they gave the penalty away, and Celtic had a wee spell, and then that missing the penalty just changed everything. The atmosphere got up, and then obviously 30 seconds later, the red card comes. And that right away just shifted the momentum. And I thought the interesting thing about that was Celtic actually created a couple of chances, even with 10 men, just after. And I thought to myself, and actually, fair play to Hearts, and this is where I would praise Naismith. His man management that day was actually very good, because they didn't just think, right, we're playing against 10 men here, let's batter them and go all gung ho. They were actually very patient. They stuck to their game plan. Got the penalty, which, look, I think if it's this season, that penalty doesn't get given because of the new rules. But you take them when you get them. I've seen Celtic get more than enough dodgy penalties over the years against us. So finally,
I disagree with you.
And then we go 1-0 up, and then the good thing about that is I thought they were soft. So the Shanklin one there, that was offside. That one, it was just minimal, and then he scored in the second half. So I thought,
I thought you used new technology. I mean,
to be fair, it was a better finish than his actual one. But again, I thought when Hertz went 2-0 up, I thought they were comfortable after that, and they seen the game out well. They managed the game well, and I say that's the sort of performances you kind of want at home against the better teams. You know, you've got to be solid. You've got to take your chances when they come along. You're not going to go out there and absolutely batter Celtic or Rangers. It's just not going to happen. You'll have
the big thing for Celtic fans. I would imagine them across the water would be the exact same as if you're going to go to Tynecastle and you're going to get a stinking hard game, you want the Hearts to give them a stinking hard game. I know, because it always sticks in your craw. If you're beating us and then like they turn up and they wallop them 4-0 and you're sitting going fuck, because they've often said the same thing about Aberdeen with us. They'll go to Aberdeen and draw. And we'll go up there and fucking batter them. Do you know what I mean? And that's how
it's a weird one, the whole Rangers thing, because I mean, I honestly can't put my finger on it. When particularly last season, I mean, it was bizarre. I mean, we nearly beat Rangers as well. We were actually 1-0 up at Ibrox with 2 minutes. Just going into stoppage time, we lost the game 2-1, and I still can't. I just don't know how that fucking happened. Mind does hurts. I mean, my first ever trip to Celtic Park as an away fan was, I think it was 2002 or 3 or whatever it was, and Hearts were winning 2-0, and Celtic scored 2 goals in the last minute to get a draw, and that set the tone of kind of late sort of comebacks and late goals against Celtic and Rangers. So I've seen it all before, really, when it comes to Hearts, but. Yeah, I just can't understand how that one happened. Then we played them again midweek, and they beat us 1-0. And it was a silly goal to concede, but it was the 5-0 one at Ibrox. And by the way, I'm willing to. I'd put a safe bet on that Hearts have conceded more goals against Celtic and Rangers than any other team in Scotland, probably put together actually, because the amount of 5-0 drubbings we've had in Glasgow over the last 10 years in particular is ridiculous. I mean. I was late getting into that game at Ibrox there, and we were walking down the stairs, and the ball just rattled into the back of the net. I thought, well, there you go. That sets the tone. And we were unbeaten in 12. Look, I mean, if you come away and you get beat 2-1 at Parkhead or Ibrox, or 2-0 or whatever, and you've actually had a decent performance, then you think, well, it's one of them, innit? Tough places to go. Better teams than us.
You had me wondering there. What game? 2-2. So I've kind of would I be right? 2004. 2004. Kevin McKenna scored the first. Mark De Vries smashing big players, and then sure enough, we scored in the 88 when Chris Sutton tapped in, and then Didi Ragat scored in the extra injury time. Look at that Hearts team: Craig Gordon, Alan Mabry, Stephen Presley, McKenna, Kisnorbo, Severin, McFarlane, Hartley, Nielsen, Weir, Yanks, Mullen, De Vries, Winus, Kirk, and Barrow on the bench. Wow. Good times, isn't it? The thing is, I can't remember that game, but I was drinking at that point, so. right. So we'll go into this weekend then, right? So obviously, you're a wee bit down in your team, but as many times we've brought up, you did come to Celtic Park last season, win 2-0. In general, over the last few years, since you've been back promoted, you haven't taken any hidings. I mean, you say that 3-0 game, but that 3-0 game was tighter than it was. We've had the Kyogo seems to be a scourgy a wee bit at Celtic Park. But so, what's your thinking on the weekend? How do you think these will set up? How would you set up? And if you want to fling me a score.
I mean, I think he definitely sticks with the back three. I mean, that's kind of what he sets up every time he goes to Glasgow. And I mean, I'm not against it, even though I've ridiculed it for the last hour. I think you generally do need more security, particularly our defenders. They're just not very good defenders. And I think the energy that Celtic will play with, particularly the kind of front three, you mentioned Kyogo, guys like Dyson Maeda, by the way, is also a thorn on our side. He loves a goal against us as well. I don't know how obviously Celtic will set up, whether Ida plays or whether it is Kyogo. I mean, Kyogo's the one in form at the moment. He's got the shirt, but you never know. Rodgers might want to kind of mix up because I think you have Champions League, I think, the following week. So, you never know what sort of changes he might make, who comes back from international duty, etc. Might play its part. But I think Hearts have got to get the midfield right. They've got to get their energy right in the middle of the park. And because if you let Callum McGregor dictate, you're not going to have any joy. And I think it'll be interesting to see who he lines up in the middle of the park. I mean, I mentioned Tate, who's done well with the B team, and he done well against Celtic last season. I personally would play someone like him in the middle of the park as like a curveball. If I was the manager, that's not going to happen. Naismith won't do that. I mean, I think it'll be a fairly predictable Hearts team. It'll probably be close to the one that probably played in Pilsen, I think, to be honest. I mean, Shankland is back again. He missed the second leg against Pilsen, so I'd imagine he'll play. I don't see any major surprises. I think it just comes down to who he plays in the middle of the park, and I don't think Benny's fit enough yet to play. So you're probably talking about... Yeah, he is. He's back in full training. I don't know how far away he is from... You never know. He might be on the bench. I don't know. But I think the way they probably set up is they'll play Devlin and Grant in there and Boateng as well. Depends where kind of... I mean, I wouldn't play Devlin personally. I mean, I think he's the sort of player that you should bring on if you're maybe trying to protect a result with 20 minutes to go and you want more energy in the middle of the park and you need someone to just press and go into challenges. I think when he starts games, I don't know, I just don't think I think you want someone in there who's got a little bit of football, i.e. a Blair Spittle or a Jan Danda, even Barry Mackay. I think Barry Mackay always does well at Parkhead. He just... I don't know. I think he's got more. I'm not talking about just because he's an ex-Rangers player, but I think it's because he's got more space. He'll get more space and time on the ball to, pick a pass. It's a bigger pitch. It's better for him. So I'd be inclined to maybe see him start, and then obviously you start Vargas and try and kind of sort of go in behind and catch Celtic out, because I think defensively Celtic haven't been tested yet this season. I mean, you'll know better than me, but I don't think they've made too many signings when it comes to kind of defensively anyway. So there's maybe opportunities there for Hearts. We made one big signing, but as it stands in the scales in CCV, I've got the jersey. Do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't expect many changes by Celtic, maybe international wise, but I think we'll pretty much... If Alistair Johnson's fit, he'll start. If he's not, Ralston will start, and I think that'll be the only change. I think the next time we'll maybe change is a Falkirk game. Yeah. Hopefully no day McEwen. Yeah, well, I mean, it's at Parkhead, so I don't see that happening. But it's one of them, isn't it? When you go away from home against a lower league team, they've got nothing to fear. But yeah, I just think that Hearts at the moment, I think if they were to get out of there with a better performance, if they were to narrowly lose the game, obviously I want Hearts to go there and win 2-0 again, of course. But if you're being realistic, I think not to do what Rangers done the kind of the week before there, where I thought they actually started the game really well. And then they just capitulated. I mean, obviously Celtic got the goal, it was offside, but from then they were so poor. And then they had a spell in the second half where obviously the game's kind of done by that point anyway, but they still thought they were kind of having a go, and they were causing Celtic a few problems, where I just think that the same could quite easily happen on Saturday at Hearts, because they're as defensively frail as what Rangers are at the moment. And I feel like if we were to concede a couple of early goals, the heads just go down and that's the game over. Where if you can try and sort of manage the game, get to, half-time and then get to the hour mark, maybe Celtic start to panic a little bit, and then they maybe throw on more attacking players, and then you've got guys on the bench with pace and creativity that you can maybe bring on yourself and try and maybe, even do on the counter. And I think that's the only way Hearts are going to try and get a result there, is managing the game as best they can. If they do what they usually do and give away a stupid early goal, then there's only going to be one winner.
Yeah. I'll tell you, before we finish up, mate, there was something a game. I ended up in the terrace for a good wee while, kind of floating about, just looking at random threads and stuff like that. But they seem to bemoan that this team, and I know it's a general moan when you're not doing well, but they don't seem to have the same team spirit that they've had. Certainly, I know you were kind of critical of Nielsen, but Nielsen certainly built a good team spirit. They seem to have a set of boys. They fought for each other, whereas this team, considering it's Naismith, they don't seem to have that now. Would that be fair, or is that?
I don't know. I think there's similar characteristics to how Nielsen's time ended to where Naismith is at the moment.
Right. Okay.
I think for me, I think I think Nielsen needed to go anyway because of the run that we were on. But a lot of people say the reason why that was because he actually ended up losing the dressing room anyway.
Right, okay.
I mean, I mind we played Rangers midweek, and we were on a really good run. I think 11, 12 games unbeaten, and it was Michael Beale's Rangers, and they turned up and they scudded us 3-0. But that could have been about 7 or 8. And the way that Hearts set up that night was just baffling. You know, we brought Gran Coolin from Newcastle United on loan. Yeah, and he played him, and Snodgrass is like the only two in the middle of the park, and just it's just one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Rangers were just, I think they turned out. I mean, even Beale said that before the game. He was like, "Christ, they're having a go tonight," and yeah, have a go, but it was just illusion the way that they set up, and it highlighted for me his just inability as a manager. You know, just to properly kind of outthink his opponents, and yeah, it was an embarrassing night where almost you kind of see signs of that at the moment with Naismith, the way he's kind of tinkering the team, like going to Dundee, for example, and just changing the formation completely, and us then losing the game, and you think to yourself, don't make the same mistakes that he did, because last season we were good away from home in terms of the results that we were picking up. We were going to tough places and getting results, like Motherwell, like Dundee, where we've already lost this season already. But if you repeat those results there, suddenly it's a good start to the season. You're not 11 points behind Aberdeen for a start. 100%. You've suddenly got a bit of momentum behind you. Look, Celtic Park's a daunting place to go at any time of the season, but you think to yourself, I never know, go in there and put a decent performance on, maybe get away with a point, who knows? At the moment, you just don't see that, and I think that's, even the following week against St Mirren, I'm thinking, I don't see them going there and getting a result. And that, for me, is the biggest worry.
Robinson's done well, hasn't he? He's done well.
They're a solid team, but Hertz still went there last season and beat them, and they should be going there and beating St Mirren's and Dundee's and Motherwell.
There's your point. As you say, you went to Dundee, you went to Motherwell, you've lost both games. And when I was doing my summary earlier on, I highlighted the fact you were going to these places and winning. That's what got you that third place. Do you know what I mean? As you say, it's interesting. Right, anyway, well, we're nearly at the end here, right? So I'm going to ask in general, right? Are you going to give me a score? You're not going to bother.
Yeah, I'll go 3-1. 3-1 Celtic, obviously. I'm not going to turn it, but I heard 3-1. They bother. -1 on the coupon. No, I think 3-1. I think for me, I think Hearts can go there and play well and still lose 3-1. And that's sort of what I'm kind of wanting here. I'm wanting the players to maybe get a bit of confidence back. Yeah. They maybe create chances. You force Schmeichel into, 2 or 3 really good saves and actually test Celtic like they haven't been so far this season. And then go away from it, have a bit of momentum and go from there. And then take that into the St Mirren game and then Ross County and then Europe. So it's a big run of fixtures for Hearts coming up. Obviously, their seasons are going to be make or break what happens on Saturday. It's ultimately what comes after that, and can they get anything out of the game that's going to give them a momentum to kind of shift it and see if they can start getting results after that. So that's the biggest thing for me. I want to see a performance. I want to see them start doing the simple things better. And if you can go and do that against a Celtic team that's flying high at the moment, then it should then transpire and see us start doing well after that. But yeah, I think the way Celtic are playing at the moment, the momentum's with them. It'd be tough for anybody to go to Parkhead and get a result just now.
Okay, mate. One last question before we wrap this up. Right, so we've spoke about just in the near future here. We've talked about the next few games, next 6 games are massive, whatever. But what's the hope for the season in general, and what's the hope for you going ahead for Hearts?
I think the biggest thing for me is third place and getting European group stage football once again.
Right.
And then going from there really and doing what we should have done this season, and then obviously, as I mentioned, the first time we qualified for Europe, investing in the team and trying to build the club and going from there. Look, it's not gone. We're only 4 games into a season. We're 11 points behind Aberdeen just now, but they haven't played anybody yet themselves. I watched them against Ross County. They didn't look overly great. I think they were actually fortunate to win that game. Obviously, they scored in the 96th minute, and they've obviously Ross County missed a penalty, so I think they had a goal ruled out for offside, which was marginal themselves. So I go back to momentum. They've got the momentum just now, but that could easily derail. How are they then going to? How are they going to do when they go on a run, maybe similar to what Hearts are at the moment? So it could easily turn. And I think for me, third's definitely still should be achievable. I'd like to see us have a go at the Scottish, but again, I think a lot of things need to go your way. I think you need to have a good run to get to the semi-final. For us, it's avoiding fucking Rangers because they just seem to put us out every time we get them. And then, you never know in a one-off final. The last kind of 2 cup finals that we've played against Celtic, ironically, I think we've been terribly unlucky. We should have won the COVID one, where it was 3-3 on penalties. And that was heartbreaking, even though we weren't there. Just as well, we weren't there. And then obviously they beat us the season before that with a late goal. So you almost think to yourself, well, if you did get Celtic in a cup final, maybe you're due one. So it's one of them, innit? I mean, I think we need to win something, and the Scottish is our only realistic opportunity doing that now. So when that comes along, hopefully maybe get a good run and try and get back to Hampden and see how we do there. But the biggest thing ultimately is making sure that we're back in group stage European football for next season.
Perfect, mate. Absolutely brilliant, Gordon. It's been class talking to you, mate. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to you. It's been really interesting. Before I let you go, tell us a wee bit about your podcast and tell us where people can follow you or the pod on social media should they want to.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're the Hearts Review. We were kind of the first weekly Hearts podcast, and then we started. I think it's about 6 years ago now. We started the pod, maybe slightly over that. I'm not sure. Ross is kind of our host. He'll definitely know for a fact, and he'll be sitting shouting at the screen when he's watching this how exactly old we are. And then a lot of other podcasts kind of followed on, and Hearts have got quite a lot of podcasts now, and they're quite popular. Us at the moment, unfortunately, we've not really been recording lately. We were weekly all the time, and then we've had to kind of scale it back a little bit, just with work commitments and things like that. It's been difficult for everybody. Yeah, it is what it is. So we will have a new show out very, very soon. People can kind of listen to previous shows. They're all on Spotify. They're all on kind of SoundCloud, if they so wish. But yeah, we do tweet occasionally, usually when we're absolutely furious after a couple of pints, which is maybe not something we should do. I think we're quite an outspoken podcast. I think it's probably the best way to describe us, I think. But yeah, I mean, we have a good following, and people will not always agree with us, but I think they do enjoy interacting with us. So no, they can do that on X or Twitter or whatever it's called these days. But yeah, we'll be back with a show soon, and we look forward to that.
What a guy. Well, anybody who usually listens today know what I'm going to say. Good luck for the future. Hope your team gets pumped to the weekend. I wish you nothing but success in the European games. Honestly, I really hope you do well. I hope your trip's good and safe. But Gordon Senior, thanks for being my guest tonight. All the best, pal.
Pleasure, mate. Much appreciated.